uses humor to make light of experiences that are not so humorous for the immigrants that experience them. When we read this book, we sometimes laughed at the painful experiences of the characters. Do you think this use of humor is appropriate? Explain your thoughts. I guess I can start. I said I don't think that the humor is incredibly appropriate, but I really thought it was necessary for the graphic novel and just to really fully understand it and take the message at its fullest potential. So I said on page 48, we just stereotyped the Asian descent so much, and I don't know, it's just very stereotypical of Chinky. And then on 112, we were saying how Asians they're always smart, they're always really good at school and stuff. So I think both of those is just we don't really think of that, when you think oh well, they're Asian so they're really smart. I just feel we think about we overlook that we're actually stereotyping them, because I think it happens every day.
I think that the humor and stuff was important for the book, just because it was a big part of lots of parts of the book. For example, with Rich and Key and stuff. If it didn't use the humorous racism and stuff, or use racism in the book, it wouldn't be a book. I feel because that was the whole point of him being there. And I don't know, on page 96 and stuff, when they say, hey, I think it's getting a little nippy out here and stuff, it's harsh, but it depicts what things are actually like.
Yeah, I think it's appropriate, but I think the book needs to include it in order for the author to tell the story that he's wanting to tell, and it shows how we react to racism. It's we use humor to make it feel okay. On page 58, when we're introduced to Cousin Chinky, they have all the stereotypes of old time Asian, and the robes, the braids, the teeth, and it really helps it's mocking his history, and then the laughter underneath kind of somehow makes it seem it's okay to laugh along with it, kind of.
Megan had mentioned, on page 112, it kind of shows how smart he is, which also goes to page 119, where the teacher is doing a science problem and he does it. But I think the humor is great until it kind of gets out of hand, and I think even in real life, and obviously this is kind of real life, the book, but on page 121, in panel 2, it shows a gentleman squinting his eyes, and the lady next to him is kind of ha-ha. So it's kind of that's when it kind of goes too far, is when you just kind of start doing that stuff. The other stuff is you're saying they're smart and blah blah blah, but when you get to making fun of exterior stuff, it's I don't think that's right either.
I think there definitely needed to be comedy, because if you look through every chapter, you'll find some sort of comedy, whether it's racist or not. On 16, when the monkey's beating people up, it's kind of a comedic setting you got there. There's funny pictures and stuff, but then on 50, when Chinky gets into the picture, it gets more racist. But I think without all the comedy, it would just be kind of a dry read and not as fun to read.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that, because I think if this story was told in a novel, the racist humor wouldn't necessarily have to be used, but because it's kind of a comic and a graphic novel, it needs to be used. And then on page 207 through 211, it's a fight scene of Chinky and Danny, and I just think that was they're a stereotype, I think, is that all Asian culture knows Taekwondo or something, or is really good at fighting, and I just kind of thought this scene went too far in some ways.
I think had Jin Loon Yang been not Asian American and had grown up in the setting, it would have been less appropriate. Say on page 96 in panel 2, they make a couple of racist slurs, they say, hey, I think it's getting a little nippy out here, getting goop bumps and stuff. I think had that been expressed by someone of a different race, I think that this book would not have been widely accepted, or maybe not even published, or some two extremes of that.
Yeah, I agree with all that people said, and then I also think that laughing is a good way to cope with serious issues. It brings them into light in sort of a different way, and it makes them relatable, which I think is important, and the authors goal, which is getting his point across. So, for example, like on page 118, it's just like completely absurd. That's the page where Chinky goes pee-pee in his Coke. Yeah. And it's just like, it's so absurd that anyone, even if they have like racist preconceptions before, should know that it's like not how anyone actually is, and it's just kind of a big like highlighter for the point that he's trying to get across.
I agree with John in the way that I think part of it, it's appropriate, and I don't know how to say this like in a better way, but I think since the author is Chinese, then it's intended for humor, so it's okay, I guess. And I saw this on page 48, the slide that AP talked about earlier, with the luggage being the Chinese takeout and the Chinese clothes that he's wearing. And I think that it's appropriate to fully understand and have good insight of what they truly go through.
Do you guys think it's okay for the author to make Asian stereotypes and make fun of the Asian culture just because he's Asian?
I don't think he's making fun of it as much as he like uncovering, but like revealing it sort of. Because I feel like we like, yes, there are stereotypes, and yes, like that's a thing. But I also think that we overlook it so much that we don't really realize like how often we like use stereotypes. Like he's just trying to like show it.
I think he's definitely going for more of like the absurd. If it was more like realistic, then it might actually be worse. Whereas like since it's so absurd, it's just like it's more okay, if that makes sense. Like it's just so like unrealistic that you know that it's not serious. It's not how like anyone would really portray these people.
Well, I think people do though. I think people do that, and that's why where it shows like how realistic it is, like how ridiculous it is. Like I just think, and I feel like that's why he's doing it, to show like this happens every day.
And I don't think there's a way to tell people this kind of stuff without putting it in this kind of humor, because nobody's gonna read it, and they're not gonna like. If someone finds this funny, they're gonna like want to keep reading more about making fun of someone. It's like in movies when someone gets hurt, a lot of times like in a comedy movie, they're gonna laugh because obviously they think when people are getting hurt it's funny. So I think this is kind of similar.
I think that, like, I agree with Megan and what she's saying, and, like, yeah, people do make these stereotypes and stuff, and, like, that's why the author put them in here, like, and they are so absurd, but I think, like, the author's trying to bring that to our attention, like Megan said, that people do make these stereotypes that are so absurd, but, like, it's like, why? And on page, like, 114, when he's, Chinky's eating, like, his food, and he's, like, crispy fried cat gizzard with noodle, and it's like a whole cat head. Like, no, like that's a stereotype that people eat, like that descent eat like dogs and cats and stuff. But it's just like going to a next level and stuff.
I think like Megan's right again, and Hannah obviously, but cause like I don't know, I thought this was kind of the story of his life. Isn't it? Well, like, not exactly right, but, like, because on page 30, it's the panel where the teacher's introducing him to the class, and she says that he's all the way from China, but really he's from San Francisco, so, like, I think that was really sad.
Yeah, I didn't mean that, like, the whole book was absurd. I just thought the Chinky chapters were, like, a step into, like, a more absurd direction, but obviously the chapters of him, like, in school, and the episodes that are, like, the chapters that are actually about Jin Wang, those are more like reality, and those are obviously more like realistic about the stereotypical portrayals. And then like Chinky was kind of more of just like a spotlight on it further.
You can just finish your thought.
Oh, that's it.
It says he's from San Francisco. So.
Alright, next one. Choose one page or one